Benjamin Perryman, Abdoul Abdi's lawyer, fields questions as Abdi's sister, Fatouma Abdi, looks on at federal court after a hearing to determine whether deportation proceedings should be halted for the former child refugee, in Halifax on February 15, 2018. A judicial review is scheduled for today in the case of Abdoul Abdi, a former Somali child refugee fighting to stay in Canada. The Canada Border Services Agency detained Abdi, who was never granted Canadian citizenship while growing up in foster care in Nova Scotia, after he served about 5 years in prison for multiple offences including aggravated assault. Andrew Vaughan, the Canadian Press Halifax, a federal lawyer, says a man who was a child refugee from Somalia when he first arrived in Nova Scotia is trying to get Canadian citizenship through the back door despite the fact he has been convicted of a violent crime and is facing possible deportation. Lisa Grant, who represents the federal public safety minister, told the federal court hearing Tuesday that a decision by the Canada Border Services Agency to refer Abdoul Abdi to a deportation hearing should not be overturned by a judicial review. What the applicant is actually trying to do here is to seek a de facto grant of citizenship. Grant told federal court Judge Anne-Marie MacDonald, who later reserved her decision in the case. Abdi, who was born in Saudi Arabia in 1993, lost his mother in a refugee camp when he was 4 and came to Canada with his sister and aunts 2 years later. He was taken into provincial care shortly after arriving in Nova Scotia. He was moved 31 times between foster homes, but he was never granted citizenship while he was growing up in the province. Abdi developed behavioral problems that advocates say were not adequately treated. Those issues led to problems with the justice system. The border agency detained Abdi and referred him to a deportation hearing after he served about 5 years in prison for multiple offences including aggravated assault. Abdi's lawyer, Benjamin Perryman, argued that the Canadian and Nova Scotia governments have failed his client, which is why Abdi should not face a deportation hearing. He would be a citizen if he had been taken care of properly, Perryman said outside the Halifax courtroom. Perryman told MacDonald that the decision to send Abdi to a deportation hearing was unreasonable, unfair and contrary to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and international law. Abdi did not attend the hearing. He is living and working in Toronto, which is in keeping with one of the conditions of his release. Grant said the suggestion that Abdi's rights under the Charter and international law have been violated are premature and based on hypothetical harm. This is an administrative process that does not result in any change of status for the applicant, Grant told the court. As well, she suggested that Abdi could seek a so-called danger opinion from immigration officials, which can be used to prevent refugees from being deported to unsafe countries. However, Perryman challenged those assertions, saying immigration officials will have no choice but to send Abdi back to Somalia if the deportation hearing goes ahead. As for the danger opinion, he said such an assessment wouldn't take into account the challenges Abdi has faced in Canada. Lawyers from the Canadian Civil Liberties Association and the non-profit advocacy group Justice for Children and Youth also made submissions to the court. Abdi's case has prompted supporters to call on the Nova Scotia government to intervene on his behalf. As well, the high-profile case has sparked protests at events with federal leaders, including a town hall earlier this year with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Lower Sackville, NS.